Josh, you do so many videos. Are you ever going to run out of stuff to say? No, I won't. And I'll share with you why here today, because we're going to talk about more investment company fear-mongering as ways to get you so scared that you don't ever retire and you continue to invest, because if you don't, you'll be eating cat food and you have to have your granddaughter change your diaper. That drives me insane, the fear-mongering that comes in the financial planning arena. So welcome to the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel, my friends, the place you come to maybe learn to be a little bit more optimistic. Frankly, So if you like what you see here, subscribe. Absolutely. So subscribe. So let's just dive right into this. And I'm never going to get a job back in the industry. I can tell I'm going to burn too many bridges because I just can't take it. And that's fine. When I quit my job as working for another firm, I knew at the end of the day I was going to lose all my licenses, my investment licenses. I was probably going to even at some point give up my CFP. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I might, and they might take it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I knew I just had to say what was on my mind. And, hell's bells, let the situation turn out as it's going to be. But at least until I run out of money, I'm going to say what's on my mind. And hopefully you can gain some stuff from it. I don't think I'll ever run out of things to say because it's perpetual, the garbage that comes into business to remove you from your own money and to keep you in that corporate shackle where you never stop and you never look up and say, am I okay? And if you are okay, you can walk away and actually enjoy what you're doing. Now, with that said, if you're knee deep in debt, I don't want you just to quit to take some flyer on a restaurant. That's crazy. But if you have no debt and you have what's called FU money, it might not be a bad idea to do that, or at least consider it. I was working with a guy not too long ago, and he had a net worth of well into $2 million. I can't remember if he had any debt or not, but anyway, more cash flow than you could possibly imagine. And I could just tell he's bored. I said, it's okay to leave. It's okay, but it's hard to do that when you've been trained in position for 30 odd years, working for the corporate grind, sitting in the traffic, and that's kind of who you are. It's hard to do that. I know, I've been there. I was making good money before I started doing this. Now I'm not making good money. I'm happier, absolutely. And as I always say, if I need to go work at Walmart as a greeter, and I'll still be doing these videos, I'll do it if I got to make ends meet, because once you get free, you never go back. And it's liberating to do what you know you should be doing, what you want. Man, I wake up all the time just ready to go. It's awesome. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about this from Morgan Stanley. Came across my LinkedIn feed. I got no qualms with Morgan Stanley per se. It's now Morgan Stanley Smith Barney. Smith Barney was part of Citigroup. Smith Barney was his own firm. Then they combined with Legg Mason. That's when I was there. Merrill Lynch is now part of Bank of America. Is A.G. Edwards part of these guys too? Or is that part of, I can't even keep track anymore. As Wachovia became Wells Fargo, right? And I think A.G. Edwards, I can't even keep track. Wait, here's Morgan Stanley. 5 mistakes to avoid in retirement. So that's a good clickbait and actually made me click on it. And I'm glad I did. What's Morgan Stanley saying for mistakes? Let's take a look. How you plan your finances in retirement may be just as important as the process of saving for retirement. Here are some key considerations. You spend a lifetime planning for your retirement goals and contributing to your 401k, perhaps investing additional assets in IRAs and other accounts. Now you finally get on the verge of retiring. However, you may be surprised to find out retirement planning doesn't stop there. To keep all of your life and retirement goals on track, here are several pitfalls to avoid as you embark on this new exciting chapter in your life. And let's see if they attribute to this anybody as the author, and they do not. And that's another thing that drives me crazy about Morgan Stanley, not just Morgan Stanley, but these big firms. There's never an author per se. It's never Joan of Arc. It's always the company. And the reason that drives me crazy because it goes through this sausage making structure of compliance. I say you should do a Roth conversion, and a compliance officer who's never been a financial advisor says, whoa, you got to quantify that, and all these different disclosures. It's insane. And so you basically get completely scripted, plain vanilla, anyway. You apply for Social Security benefits too early is their number one risk. And I get that. I talked about it every single way to Sunday. I'm not going to talk about that here. You failed to take a more conservative investment approach. I don't know so much about that, but let's just hear what they have to say. When you were younger, you can invest more aggressively because you had time to recoup any losses you might have incurred. As you approach retirement, however, the game changes. You're going to need the assets you've accumulated for day-to-day expenses and no longer have the luxury of the time you once enjoyed. Especially during their early years of retirement when you're beginning to withdraw assets from your retirement nest egg, it's important to employ a strategy that considers capital preservation. Without this consideration, the combination of spending and volatile markets might make your portfolio deal with a big blow it can never recover. I completely agree with that. But to say you fail to take a more conservative approach is insinuating you need to take a more conservative approach. I don't know you need to. And again, this is what I'm saying. This is just the cliched stuff is what drives me crazy. And I can't blame Morgan Stanley for this. They don't know who you are. I just challenge that 100%. You don't know what you need, or I mean, you might, but Morgan Stanley doesn't know what you need. Just kind of throw that up against the wall. So you failed to take a more conservative approach. I would actually say it like this: you failed to plan for your retirement income. All right, when the markets fall, that's how you should say it. It's not conservative because implying that you should go more bonds, and I don't believe that 2 seconds flat, not in the least. So I think the headline should be, or the rule should be, you fail to plan how you're going to make ends meet when the markets fall, not if, when, and that would be the way I'd look at it. You spend the way you used to spend, and I have no problem with this, but let's just read what they say. Hand in hand with a more conservative investment approach is a more conservative budget. Again, we're insinuating you're going to a more conservative approach because you hit retirement. So you need to be more conservative, right? Right. You don't necessarily have to compromise your retirement lifestyle, but you do have to maintain a realistic view of your finances. Since you're no longer earning a steady paycheck, or there's a song from a long time ago called Petty Stay Check. I love that, man. Petty. I forgot who the band was. Petty Stay Check. We're going to give you a petty return so you stay with us. And that was just a wonderful turn-on phrase there. I love it. Petty Stay Check. But since you're no longer earning a steady paycheck or working less, your income may not be as high as it once was. A lifetime's worth of retirement savings can look like an enormous source of assets that you can tap into whenever you like, but your retirement may last 30 years or more. It's a good idea to work with a financial advisor to take inventory of expenses, identify all sources of income, and develop a strategy to maintain your retirement lifestyle as long as you live. Okay. That is essentially, come talk to us. We'll make sure you're good to go. And I have no problem with that. It's just not it's not a very defined pitfall. You miscalculate your RMDs. There's some legitimacy to that. Generally, once you reach 70, you must take your RMDs. We talked about that a million times a Sunday here, so I'm not going to dive into that. Distributions are taxable at your individual tax rate, and if you fail to take them, you're subject to a substantial penalty, 50% of the distribution amount. I've been in this a long time. Have very, very, very rarely seen this happen. All these guys use that as one of the big risks of retirement. It is, don't get me wrong, but there's much more risks to your retirement pitfall than your failure to take your required minimum distributions. It's just not that big of a deal. But it's easy because they're saying, oh my goodness, you're going to get a 50% penalty on your RMD. It just doesn't happen that often, not enough to make it one of the top 5 pitfalls to avoid. It's just not. On a side note, if you're a participant in an employer-sponsored plan other than an IRA-based plan and are still working for the plan, you do not have to take RMDs. It's just cliche stuff. And that's the thing I don't like, is just basically is easy cliche stuff. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's cliche for me because I've read it 1,000 times a Sunday. It's an article just like this, and it might not be cliche for you. So I don't want to, debase that. I don't want to debase it, but again, the idea that is one of the top 5 things you got to avoid. I just don't buy it. And on top of that, your expenditures, you spend the way you used to. Again, they can write whatever they want. That's fine. I don't like it. And that's not the gist. The gist is right here. Not taking healthcare expenses into account. And I completely agree with this part. A 2017 survey by Nationwide Retirement Institute found that 34% of retirees stated healthcare costs are interfering with their retirement. 3 in 4 retirees with healthcare issues say that health problems come up sooner than they expected, and nearly a quarter of retirees said that these costs are keeping them from living the retirement they expected. These results are not unexpected given healthcare cost trends. Consider this: a 65-year-old couple in good health, falling within the middle of Medicare's high income tier, can expect to pay $565,000 in today's dollars for healthcare coverage throughout retirement. And that is number 3. I'm just curious where number 3 is. It includes Medicare premiums and surcharges, supplemental coverage that cover a portion of hospital and doctor's bills. And part A and B do not So they're basically saying you're going to have big Medicare premiums right here, because once you have an income stream above 187, married filing jointly, you start paying more and more for your premiums, Part B and Part D for sure. And that's what they're saying here. And I just hate these numbers right here, because they never say, according to Fidelity study, you're going to pay $600,000 for your home and maintenance costs at your house. They never say that, because everyone knows you're going to live in a home, and no one would say, oh, I better start saving more. So anyway, I despise that right there as a way to get people to, oh my goodness, I'm going to spend so much in healthcare. What's more, it's estimated that 70% of people, this is the kicker, 70% of people over 65 will require extended care at some point in their lives. And 1 in 7 people over 65 will need long-term care for more than 5 years. Because of statistics like these, recognizing the potential need for long-term care is another important issue to consider regarding asset erosion. One option for retirees is long-term care insurance to help protect the assets you've accumulated and to allow you to provide your loved ones with a meaningful legacy. All right. And start the conversation with us. We're here to start the conversation. All right. So what jumps out at you here, or at least me, I should say, is 70% of people over 65 will require extended care at some point in their lives. All right. What does that mean? Well, they don't really define it. So that in of itself may or may not be a huge valid concern. Frankly, it's not for me, because I've looked at the research, Employee Benefits Research Institute, many other research organizations. And while that is true, that there's a good chance you're going to need some extended care, it's not to the extent that you're going to erode your assets necessarily. The other one is the big one. 1 in 7 people over 65 will need long-term care for more than 5 years. All right. So what is that study from? We go down to number 4, and it is from the I guess we don't see it down here. Does it show us? Yeah, right there. Longtermcare.gov. So let's look at the longtermcare.gov and see what they say. How much care will you need? Let's take a look. The duration of long-term care will vary from person to person and often change over time. Here are some statistics on average. And if you know anything about statistics, on average is let's just put it this way. We're looking for the median. We don't care so much about the average, because the median has 50% above, 50% below, or below. That means that is half. 50% above, 50% below. That is the median. Average is me and Bill Gates. Between us, our average is our income is $8,000 billion. Whoa. Well, the reason is because Bill Gates is way over there skewing the numbers, and I'm way over here. But between us, we have a huge income on average. And that's where the averages can really just screw you up, because they can take just a couple of huge outliers and screw everything up for the rest. That's why you want to look at the median. But either way, someone turning 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care services and supports in their remaining years. Women need care longer, 3.7 years, than men, 2.2. Men will be taken care of by the woman, and who's going to be to take care of the woman? That's the problem. I do not dispute that in the least. But going back to the Morgan Stanley thing, 20% will need it for longer than 5 years. What they avoided, and again, an error of omission is almost as bad as an error of commission. 1/3 of today's 65-year-olds may never need long-term care. So 20% are going to need it for longer than 5 years, we think. But what we dispute is that 1/3 of them won't ever need any at all. All right. So that's the issue right there. Why are we only focused on the people who need it? Because that could be you. It really not likely to be you that much relative to the fear we're injecting into people's hearts. The table below also shows that overall more people use long-term care services at home and for longer than in facilities. So either in-home care, or your spouse provides for you, or you live with your kids or something like that. Are those all good options? Not necessarily. If you have an issue with your health, that stinks. But guess what? We already just determined that 1/3 of the people aren't going to need any. And then 70% of chance of needing some long-term care support. So 1/3 of the people aren't going to need any. Some are going to need some, but the women need care for 3.7 years and men 2.2. That's not enough to destitute most people. It's just not. Again, that doesn't mean you start lighting cigars with $100 bills saying you don't need asset preservation with long-term care insurance or some kind of plan. But the idea that nursing home, essentially the insinuation is you're going to be in a nursing home spending $10,000 a month. And there's just no numbers to validate that. And I just hate it, because I think what it says is keep working, because you might be eating cat food with your daughter or your granddaughter changing your butt while you're sitting on the pot and with diarrhea explosion. And I know that sounds gruesome, but that's what everyone worries about. And we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to keep working. So I can forward something to happen so that doesn't happen, even if the likelihood of that happening is minimal. We're going to scare you so that way you will say, I'm prepared in case. And yet the vast majority of people use long-term care services at home. All right. They're staying at home. Men don't need it for that long. Women need it for about double men, but even 33% don't need anything. And going back to my EBRI study on true healthcare costs of retirement and other studies as well that validate the likelihood of one actually spending a significant amount of money for long-term care coverage, not insurance, but needs, is pretty minute. It's just not a huge issue to contend with. And here we go. Percent of people who need use this type of care, any services. 69% of people use any services. So that's all encompassing. What does that mean? Any services. I mean, that is all encompassing. And even then, the average is only 3 years. Paid care less than a year. Percent of people who need paid care for less than a year is only 42%. I mean, again, you start seeing unpaid care only 59%. They use it for a year. Unpaid care is your kid or your mom, your wife or something like that. Any care at home, 65% need some care at home for 2 years. And again, most people, not all, but most people are going to have some kind of financial place to pay for that. However it would be it a long-term care insurance. I have long-term care, so I don't want to hear people say you're against insurance. No, I absolutely have it. My wife and I both do because of that emergency. It will bankrupt us in 2 seconds flat if I can no longer earn an income. But if you have a couple $100,000 squirreled away and your house, you're with your spouse, the likelihood of you going bankrupt because of this is quite small. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just quite small. Facilities, 35% are in nursing home for a year. Percent of people who use this type of care, 35%. Again, that's just not a huge amount for a year. Assisted living, 13% are assisted living for less than a year. In any care, in any facilities, a third are in there for a year. So, I mean, that's just not the same level of concern, frankly, as what these guys would lead you to believe. And look, I'm not, I guess I am bashing Morgan Stanley. Start the conversation is fine. I got no qualm with that whatsoever. Start the conversation. But the minute I see this number right here, you need over $500,000 or else you're going to go bankrupt and you'll eat cat food and your wife will have to change your diapers when you had a diarrhea explosion on the toilet. I hate it because I just don't think I don't think it's truthful. I don't. And I think it's fear-mongering. And I hate fear-mongering. I just do because life's too short to be sitting in their fear all the time. It is. You do what you want to do now. Enjoy what you have because there might come a time that you will not remember that, or you might not be around because you got hit by a proverbial bus. Enjoy it while you can. Life is fleeting. It's short. You only get one life. Enjoy it. And if you're not familiar with the parable of the talents, I highly encourage you to read that parable. You don't have to be Christian. It's a wonderful just story about people. A guy left his servants money and they said, I want you guys to do whatever you can with the money. One guy invested, he doubled the money. Another guy invested, did even better. And one guy buried it under the ground because he's worried about what the master would say when he came back if he lost the money. And the issue is that he didn't have faith. He was so scared that he just buried it in the ground and did not allow it to grow. I say enjoy it, but I look at it like this. You are blessed with your health, with your wealth of living in the United States, Canada, because I do have some Canadian folks on here too, to sit there, to slave away, sit in a commute, sit in a cubicle, compiling debt on top of debt because at some point you're going to retire at 70 years old. I don't think that's what you're supposed to be doing. Now, again, your situation may call for that. I don't know. And don't say just, this guy Josh told me to quit my job. I'm not saying that. But don't be the parable of the talents or read the parable of the talents and don't be the guy who just buried everything under the ground. And the talents in the case is literally your talent, your talent. My talent, I find, it might not be that good, but I get a lot of positive responses from YouTube. I love it. Makes me happy. So maybe this is my talent. Maybe your talent is going put up solar PV panels on houses that, they have a significant electricity bills. I don't know. Maybe your talent is teaching kids in the inner city who's got dyslexia, the Orton Gillingham system where they can learn multi-sensory learning so they can actually read. And then they can find out that learning is actually a good thing instead of joining gangs. I don't know what your talent is, but it certainly isn't. But you certainly have a talent, and digging it and building it in the ground, just digging the ground because you're so afraid that you're going to have to come up with over $500,000 is not good. And I wish they didn't do this. Anyway, all right, that's a diatribe for today. If you like what you see here, as always, subscribe. Comments are always welcome. I like comments mostly because that tells YouTube there's some activity. Thumbs up is useful too. So for me, what I'd like for you to do is comment and thumbs up. Both of those two things help me with YouTube so that YouTube shows my content to other people who might be ignorant about who Heritage Wealth Planning or Old Josh is. So comments and thumbs up are always helpful for sure. Go to the blog at heritagewealthplanning.com. Get ready to do a complete website update. Actually, a guy on YouTube watched my videos and reached out to me, and I said, hey, and it turns out he does website development. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And maybe I'll even interview him at some point for my podcast too. So if you're looking for web developers, it might not be a bad thing. My website just loads way too slowly. And this guy, David, said, man, Google does not like slow loading pages. And I knew that. So it's nice to have a guy that you can kind of do some bartering with. I mean, he's going to charge me, but I can give him some financial planning advice. And that's pretty cool. That's a community, and I love it. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.